everyone, and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
You know, lately I've been in the market for another Nintendo Switch dock.
Oh.
I'm surprised that, the official solution is still over $100. I'm not sure I trust the third-party ones just yet, just because I remember how many Switches they were bricking kind of at the beginning. I feel like by now they must be okay, right? But I don't know. How can you know?
So there is I think an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter that I backed from the company GameCreek, and they have been making something. They claimed it. They wrote that article that was like, "Hey, this is why so many docks are bricking." You know, people were getting some detail of Nintendo's specific USB-C implementation wrong because Nintendo wasn't quite doing it to the letter of the law. Big surprise. So they've got this thing that is called the covert dock that I would really love to see come to fruition. So I'm either one of the geniuses or the hapless idiots that back this thing.
How long ago did you back that?
It was 4 years ago. No, it was probably back maybe 2 months or so ago. But essentially, They claim to have gotten all the dock technology down to about the size of the Nintendo Power charger, like the thick part at the beginning of the Switch charger. So it is a USB-C charging pass-through, a HDMI pass-through, and a USB 3.1, just generic USB point. And it claims to power the Switch, do proper USB pass-through, all without doing damage to the console. So I'm definitely half in the wait-and-see approach, but if so, you could potentially have a dock for half the price and about the size of a couple of thumbs.
I see a lot of them on Amazon for about $25 as opposed to the over $100 of the official one.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
Yeah, some of them only have 8 reviews, which makes me really nervous. So I really don't want to test it, especially not a week before Pokemon comes out. So not sure what I'm going to do yet, but maybe this can turn into a reoccurring feature.
No kidding. Now I'm in the unenviable position too that I don't know exactly when these things are shipping out, but I might not be home to get it. So I need to change my address as I'm in the process of moving to Denver, Colorado.
That's right. It's coming up quick. So any of our Denver listeners...
Yeah, stop by my house. And no, don't stop by my house. You won't know where my house is, hopefully, anyway. But it's going to be a wild time. I'm going to be up in the mountains. Finally, a mountain man.
Very cool. Not many of those in Detroit.
No, very few, actually, I find.
Let's get to the video game pitches. Q, you're going first today. What are you bringing us?
So... speaking of, I'm really bearing my soul this week, I'm realizing. I am a man, I'm 33 years old, and I have started to look in the mirror and realize, wow, my hair is not quite the thickness that it used to be. And so, facing down the barrel of aging, I started doing all this research about how essentially every bracket of age that a man gets, 30, 40, 50, each one of those decades has a 10% increase in chance that you're going to lose your hair or the percentage of hair you lose, which was fascinating to me. By 50% of men lose hair. I was thinking about this and I started doing all this YouTube research of how men deal with this and hairstyles. I really went down this rabbit hole and I was like, wait a second. I'm doing this research. I don't even know why. It's not that serious of a problem yet, but I love the idea of making light of this and having a game that gives men who are losing their hair some fun to have with it, and maybe a laugh or two, where a game where you play a hairstylist who has access to an array of tools And men come in with increasing levels of hair thinness, and you have to shape and comb over and work with and fluff up and give them the best haircut and hairstyle you can with what hair you have. So a little bit of hairstyling game, kind of a puzzle game, something like that.
Cool. Let's go ahead and start the clock. So I'm curious about these scoring mechanics. Obviously, I think that hairstyling is very subjective. I do like making do with what little you have, but whether or not you did well is kind of, in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's true. So maybe you have to make the specific ask of the game for comb-overs, and then you're entering down a path of how much hair did you successfully hide, and that's a little bit more about finding hair and placing it in different directions and that sort of thing.
Okay, so essentially you're looking for maximum head coverage then.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see if you can cover up as much of that thinning hair as you can.
All right. So let's see. I was originally hoping this would be some sort of a game that utilizes a peripheral to encourage exercises that reduce hair loss in men, like a Wii Fit, but for hair loss.
That's interesting.
I don't even know if that kind of technology exists, but that's never stopped us in the past.
Right. This episode of Playwright is brought to you by Hims. No.
Doctors hate him.
One of the things I think could be, so if the game is a little bit more the sort of, I hate to use the term traditional, but it kind of is at this point, the traditional sort of overdone anime aesthetic Japanese, like you're doing these kind of wild things to hair and that's considered success as long as you're like covering it up. I think one thing that you could do is intersperse and like give people educational resources about I don't know exactly who this audience is for, but I just found, like with most things, going and spending some time doing just a little bit of research on this, I was like, wow, there is just so much to learn just about men's hair. And of course, like it felt like I was uncovering a section of the internet that totally has existed for a long time, but I didn't know about all those things like the, every decade or whatever. And there's certain brushes you want to use, and men think that their hair should be longer, but haircuts actually help it may look better. So maybe there's stuff like that you can intersperse. I don't know if that's tooltip screens or if that's in between levels or what, but yeah, give these men some haircuts too would be really great.
We'd really have to validate any tips that we give out. I think that there's a lot of science, pseudoscience, I would say.
Pseudoscience for sure.
Among men in particular, when it comes to making things longer, that I am not entirely convinced.
Longer and fuller, H. Let's not mince words here.
Fullness has never been the problem.
Yeah, I do like the idea of having access to like blow dryers and stuff, and maybe, I don't know how you avoid doing the sort of maybe Donald Trumpian sort of level here, being able to push hair around, or maybe this is a hair transplant game. And you actually have to do things like find areas where there is more dense hair in a scalp and strategically remove those hairs and put them on at different points and have your patients come back for visits and see how they're recovering. And you do all that sort of crazy stuff.
Maybe there's some kind of obscure elements within the game. If you're really paying attention to things, then you can find almost like alchemical formulas that allow you to, perform all sorts of crazy hair-based magic, It's not just turning people from bald people into hairy men, but it could turn their hair into gold. It could, turn their hair into soup. I don't know. Alchemy.
And I said that I started this with like as a men's hair game, but women do suffer from hair loss as well, and it would be interesting to have, patients of all types come in. I love the idea of, I don't know if you know the musical Sweeney Todd, but there's basically a snake oil salesman who's selling Pirelli's Miracle Elixir, that is promising to help men regrow their hair. Basically anywhere they put it, which is kind of interesting. So maybe there's like, there's also like you're formulating your own elixirs and stuff, and maybe there's a way to tell like a person's skin type or like how their pores are operating or what needs to be stimulated to help them with their hair. Or maybe, maybe it's not even all hair loss. Maybe it's just like, I want my hair to be straight and it's curly, or I want my hair to be, well, I guess straight to curly is curling irons or what have you. But the other way around. And hair straighteners, like maybe you can do a bunch of things to this hair to elongate the parts that you have access to. Here we go with the elongation again. Or enhance the parts and really like help people kind of call attention to different parts of their face or something. I'm not quite sure.
I think there's also an inherent joy, if we're talking about hair-based games, in those little magnetic metal shaving toys. You know what I'm talking about? Where you get a face and little metal shavings behind like a plastic screen, and you would use a magnet to like give a person a funny beard or funny hair or something.
Yeah, one of the things I saw was apparently this is really popular in Hollywood, and there was an interview with John Cryer on Conan O'Brien where he pointed this out, but there is just straight up kind of matte hairspray. And when I say hairspray, I mean black spray that you spray onto your scalp that is just meant to basically cover scalp and blend in with the color of your hair, but it doesn't actually add any thickness. It's mostly like for the camera. So maybe you have tools like that where you have a limited resource pool of the sprays and you have limited energy you can use in the blow dryer and stuff. So every level, every head is like finding, how much of which resource you can use and what direction to use it in order to get the most hair to comb over, essentially.
Yeah, so let's go back to the combing over aspect of it. I do want to acknowledge that among video game simulations, hair is one of the hardest things to do correctly. So in creating this indie game, you're actually kind of partaking in one of the most dangerous and difficult tasks video game creators can get up to. You know, I think the best hair that I've seen in games is maybe like Tomb Raider. The newer Tomb Raider games are pretty impressive, but even still, it's blocky. Like, what is the level of, I guess, if you're dealing with balding men, likely you aren't going to get any of the, the hair metal types with the long locks all the way down to their shoulders. But what level of hair simulation do you see factoring into this?
Hair-mulation, if you will.
I don't think I will. No.
All right, that's fair. Obviously, finally, we've made NVIDIA a showcase for their Tress Effects technology here, haven't we? Well, number one, if hair's thinning, I think you actually get a little bit of a save there because you have some thinning locks. But if you imagine, in my head, the imagined view is like that of the barber. And so you're pretty, like, all that's basically in frame is one human head. And then you could do almost like, how pool games just kind of have a blurred out suggested background sometimes of like, you're in a barbershop or whatever. I love the idea of having the trappings of a pool game too, complete with jazz music and like a nice mirror and just like, you're in different types of hairstylist places and you have different tools and different environments.
Trappings of a pool game, of course, something we're all very familiar with.
So if you're really close to the hair, then technically you could give enough geometry to enough strands of the hair where if you were running a comb through it or if you were blow drying it, you could actually manipulate it. It would be a little bit more like simulating grass or something in a video game than it would be, just because of the scale of the whole thing.
Well, that's appealing. Let's go ahead and close that one down and come up with a name.
Let's thin that one out. I'm surprised you didn't go for that.
Give it a name.
Give it a name. Oh man, maybe Maine. That's pretty good. Main menu. Is there something there?
Main man, Main Street Barber.
Oh, Main Street Barber is cool. I was just going to say just Main Street, but that's nothing. I think Main Street Barber Shop or something.
Main Street Barbershop. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with that. And let's move on to my pitch. So what I want today is a first-person shooter set entirely in enclosed hallways and indoor spaces in which the level spins 90 degrees whenever you fire your weapon.
Whoa.
So I'm talking like sideways like Inception. And so you have to account for all of your cover disappearing. You have to account for the entire room rotating on objects that are not strapped down, flying all about. And let's go ahead and start the clock.
Okay, this is cool. So are you imagining that there's any sort of physicsy simulation to this as well, where like when the room rotates, boxes and stuff are kind of tossed around? I've been playing a lot of Luigi's Mansion, so I'm obsessed with now random stuff blowing about the environment.
I want this to be something that is disorienting, but you could potentially use it to your advantage if you're thinking one step ahead. It's almost like turning a real-time first-person shooter into a turn-based game in the same way that like Superhot did.
I imagine it's going to be kind of tunnely. Is it a little linear? Does it end up feeling a little bit like the special level in Sonic where things are just kind of coming at you and every time you fire, you're sort of rotating around like essentially 1-point perspective?
Yeah, I think so. You kind of have a goal at the end that you want to reach, and you're just looking to get out there.
Is there? I guess this would turn it a little bit more into an endless runner, but you could also have a mechanic where maybe reloading or something will rotate the environment in the opposite direction.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and so you kind of have to account for the bullets that you have in your and then like in a lot of shooters, if you fire but your barrel is empty, then you automatically go into the reload sequence. So even if you are trying to think ahead, but you aren't counting your shots, then you could catch yourself rotating the wrong way.
It would also kind of be fun. I mean, you could do unlimited bullets, but if you did have a limited ammo supply and you're doing those forced reload type of things, then if someone gets a little bit out of whack and they want to be on a particular track, they would have to sort of, I need to fire 3 times and reload, so I'll be on the correct track. But that also means I potentially have to, expend some valuable bullets because you're shooting at things. I imagine that's like, if I shoot and let's say it's rotating clockwise, if I shoot and the world rotates clockwise, does my bullet hit the thing that's in the lane I just rotated to, or the thing that I rotated from? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I don't think everything is necessarily locked into lanes like a Guitar Hero track. I think that if you shoot, you are just aiming anywhere in 3-dimensional space.
Got it.
Although, maybe it's interesting for it to be I'm not sure. I'm undecided. I could be convinced either way.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So it's a little bit more of affecting the world. It could be, you could also have something where, or some enemies where you don't necessarily, if you shoot them, they'll deflect back at you, or they have like a counter attack. So what you really want to do is kind of empty 2 bullets out in thin air or around them, get the world rotated, and then they fall on their head, and that's what sort of dazes them to be stunned and ready for like a takedown attack or something.
I would also like if there are spikes on certain surfaces, and so you have to kind of be careful with where you're rotating yourself into. Maybe if there's long falls that you could potentially take if you rotate the wrong way. This is kind of inspired by Manifold Garden, which came out recently. Have you played that one at all?
No, but I it's beautiful looking. Every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, that looks good.
Yeah, that has, you can kind of approach any wall and then click on the wall, and then gravity will change to pull you towards that wall, and it kind of affects everything in a way. But I just think within an action setting, that would be an exciting idea to try to, and it would be very kind of like high risk, high reward. The only thing that I would find a little potentially annoying is sometimes it could be hard to determine how far you can fall without taking damage. And if you're just on the wrong side of that, I can see being a little annoyed.
I think the thing that, like, up until this point, I've imagined this as a tunnel. But if I imagine this a little bit more like Manifold Garden, or at least from what I understand from gameplay videos of Manifold Garden, or even something like, just imagine a Quake level or a Doom level that could be rotated. Like, the
absolutely.
complexity of the geometry in a space like that. Or even, did I mention Control? Yeah, I think I did.
I don't know if we've mentioned that yet.
Oh, okay. Well, the idea of a space that has like big, exaggerated, stone pillars or spikes on the wall and all this kind of super industrial brutalist architecture being rotated. I guess my question is, maybe this is by design because the game would have to be super fluid and maybe pared back to do such fast world rotations. If you're like talking about a modern Doom speed of shooting. So maybe the world rotates only on reload or something like that. Does it need to be throttled, I guess is my question.
I mean, obviously you'd be building the game around this mechanic. You would probably have to limit to like single shot type guns, pistols, revolvers. I think revolvers would be especially because, then you have the clear justification for why you only have 6 shots before you have to reload. Crossbows, things like that, no machine guns, or maybe a machine gun is a super late game item and then it just sends the entire world spinning around you.
My guy, you've with a revolver, you've also created like a cool fictional tie to this whole thing.
There we go.
The revolver is a sci-fi revolver and it revolves the world, not the gun.
I think we got a name as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. Oh, and so like, let's say it's a revolver. There's like, it's a 6-shot revolver or something like that. Mm-hmm. You could do like, when you go to reload and have to open up that barrel, you spin the world super, super fast as you like reload all those bullets and click it into place. So you almost get like every reload, you kind of end up on a random surface because you don't quite know where the revolver is going to like stop and lock in. You really have to make the world spinning be the perfect balance of like quick and responsive, but not nauseating. I think that would be a real important key here.
Yeah, I wonder how that could be done. Games that disorient players, I mean, even people got sick playing Portal. I remember that was kind of a common thing.
Maybe you could do something where you enter into these different rooms or these sort of sequences and one wall, like the far wall, is static. So the whole thing almost feels like just the floor, ceiling, and the left and right wall are the things that are sort of rotating Rubik's Cube style, but around a static core. So you get the excitement of the geometry kind of and like really making big sounds and clicking into place and like displacing dust and all that stuff. But you have a static point of reference, so there's not necessarily the nausea-inducing, like the whole world is flipped.
Yeah, I mean, you could end up even, in the middle of combat, you could end up solving big kind of room-moving puzzles as well, Maybe you're in a large, like, 3D prison cell, like you would get like a sci-fi prison cell thing where the cells are all floating about and you have to rotate them in certain ways to get the doors to align so you can escape.
Yeah, so then you could combine both action sequences. So like maybe rooms start off with like a puzzle being solved, and as the puzzle is solved and the prisoners break free or something like that. They don't have to be people. I like the idea of being crazy and monsters and all that sort of stuff. As those things make their way free, then you get a combat sequence. But because you have solved the puzzle and you've kind of rotated the level geometry enough, you kind of have a better understanding of the space that you're in and what it's capable of from those rotations. But it's still all triggered and activated through the chamber revolving of the gun.
That sounds great. Let's go ahead and stop that there and give it a name. I mean, obviously, I think Revolver fits remarkably well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I have no objections to that. Let's move on to our forum, or to not the forum, to the community. We don't have a forum. I guess we're a part of the Cane and Rinse network now, so you can probably talk about us there if you choose to.
Yeah, I mean, is there a playwright section of the Cane and Rinse forum?
Let me check right now.
If not, we're going to lobby. If there is, we're sorry, listeners who have been writing it.
There is not.
Okay, all right.
Oh, but there is a section of the forum for the Waypoint Travel Agency series of videos that I did a long time ago.
Oh, how nice.
It's interesting. All right. Anyways, this, as we say on every episode, we will make a video game out of just about anything that you pitch us, and we really don't put any limits up. I mean, just reasonable limits, I would say, but we keep the bar pretty low, and I think this is not exactly what we were shooting for, but let's see what we can do with it. This is from a new name, from Shawn Spencer, who says, campwolfcreek.com or CWC Games on Facebook. Game Factory may make a demo for me. I need my game promoted, so this podcast would be perfect to help with that. I like how honest he is, you know? I appreciate that. He's not trying to cloak it, and he's just trying to use us as advertising, which is fine.
Which, technically, job done.
Not a lot of the concept there, more of just the fine print of a sales pitch. But let's see if, without clicking through on the links, we could make a video game.
Oh no, I've already clicked through. Was that not allowed?
That's not a problem.
Okay. I'm not going to go past this homepage.
I'm going to start the clock, and let's see. What do we have here? We have somebody who is presumably a camper at Camp Wolf Creek, who is trying to feverishly write into a podcast to try to get their idea heard. Maybe it's a way of sending secret messages that the wolves can't detect, in hopes that we will pick up on it and come and bust them out of this horrible Wolf Creek.
Man, I'm sorry. I am so enchanted by this trailer that is playing before me right now.
All right, I am going to have to check this out, I think.
It is very strange. And I know I'm laughing here because it's kind of unexpected in many, many ways. I also don't have sound on it, so I'm sure sound is important.
So the opening frame of this trailer is from Spencer Entertainment, which makes me wonder. It's been a while since we've heard from Spencer Saunders. Could this be under an alias?
The one and only? This could be dubious. This could absolutely be dubious. I'm not sure what Camp Wolf Creek is.
No, we are divorced from the trailer. The actual game does not need to factor into this at all. We are building a video game based on exclusively what is in the email.
Right. So this person is, maybe they thought they were enrolling in a camp, and then they got to the camp or to be a camper, and their parents leave, and they're like, goodbye, parents. The camp is like, surprise, this is actually a game factory, and you need to constantly be producing games for us.
So you're trapped in this factory, and you have to make games, and maybe a part of it is like trying to communicate with the outside world, trying to send your message, trying to be found, leave little hints. There are some games that do some kind of interesting programmy type of stuff. Games like Hack and Slash, where you kind of rewrite the code of the game on the go to be more favorable to your conditions. Maybe you have rudimentary game programming tools at your disposal that you can use to try to create a game that will be able to get past the wolves that are running the camp, but at the same time you can sneak messages to the players.
Yes, so you have to, for example, like encode those messages in, say, like the names of your characters or something like that. You need to take their names and like the first letter of every name spells help me or something like that, but since every game has to be certified through the Wolf Wolf Creek counselors, you have to be able to pass through their checks, but also make it very clear what you want to have happen. I don't know what the mechanic here is, though. Is that like a submitting these little mini games to other people, and other people have to like have some way of writing down what the hidden meaning was?
Maybe you have to communicate parts of a message, and you're given basically like a wall of code for a game that's kind of pre-compiled, and you have to sneak these words in there in a way that won't break the game code. So maybe it's kind of an educational thing where you can like experiment with putting words in different places and seeing how it affects the output.
And as you're writing different sets of logic, then maybe you're like trying to make the logic like you're, what am I going to name this variable? And I'm going to name it something like despair, or something that's like indirectly, and then you're like, if despair, then send help, or something like this. And but like it's running something completely innocuous, and the system like send help like just turns a light on or off or something.
Yeah. I like this idea. It's kind of like a Little Inferno, where you have this kind of world around you, but you're focused on a very particular aspect of it. I think being kind of focused on your computer screen, interacting entirely with that, maybe you have to kind of like stave off boredom, tiredness, hunger, and that makes you hallucinate, and things from the game world start kind of like impacting your the real world in ways of hallucinations and such.
Is this like a Ubisoft evil corporate scenario where there is the ability to walk around Camp Wolf Creek and talk to other campers and that sort of thing, and you're also trying to like band people together to get a message out simultaneously? This is like promotion is really important in this email, right? So what is the act of promoting the message or spreading that sort of thing?
Yeah, you could be really trying to like create an uprising among the game slaves, the people that are trapped here.
Game slaves
sending messages amongst each other. That's kind of more interesting than sending messages to the outside world. If you're just trying to like, low level communicate with one another while these wolves are there patrolling and making sure that, trying to keep the rabble from conspiring.
So you could have something where you are writing these lines of game code, right? And they have to, maybe there's a little code thing on the left and the simulator on the right, and you're just in charge of like getting something to work. So now you have a game that's kind of like coding puzzles or whatever, but hidden in the code's comment sections and in like the variable names and all of this stuff. You also have to like convey a message logically start to finish in your code, and then like once your code runs and compiles and actually like makes that part of the game work, then you can take your disk over and like share it with a coworker and get a disk back from them and like get a new prompt that you're trying to work through and solve what they're going through.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe you can even program things like IM windows between people, and you have to kind of minimize them when the shadowy figure kind of looms past you. You can only kind of see reflections off your screen. You can kind of keep track of how many rows back they are, where they are, when they're going to be patrolling past you.
That's interesting. So you both have to like, is that a physical dodging?
You have to watch the screen
and
and watch the reflection as well.
Oh, so you've got like some head/camera control to sort of peek out, or maybe you can.
I don't know if you need that. You could have both layers of information happening at once. If you're on like an old CRT type screen.
Oh yeah.
Then you can kind of see things in the background, kind of like in Telling Lies, how you can see the face of the person who's watching the videos at all times.
There's also the aspect there that is kind of cool where I don't know if you've ever done this before, but like on Macs where FaceTime is one of the main apps, you can both send and receive calls from FaceTime, but if you open up FaceTime without kind of doing anything, it by default is a feed of your own video camera. So you're just kind of like using it as a mirror. So you could like launch your video chat app or something to get like a look in the other direction. And of course, like, maybe it's all mirrored or something. And there's an
You'd
interesting...
have to kind of program that yourself. That would be a late game thing to even like see what your own character looks like.
Right. You have to access the camera. Like, oh, now it's time to hook up peripherals or something like that.
All right, that's all the time that we have on that one. Thank you very much, Shawn Spencer, for sending that in. I assume that's Spencer because Shawn Spencer. Because
Shawn Spencer's got to be it, right?
I think that's probably just a typo. They're right next to each other on the keyboard there.
Okay, well, I've gone to the About Me page and I'm confirming it is Shawn Spencer.
Okay, we give a bit of a hard time at the beginning with sending in just a pitch for the website rather than a video game idea. But of course, we do not want to discourage anyone from sending just whatever they want. The less it resembles a video game pitch, the more freedom we end up having. So we are open and eager to receive anything that you have to throw our way. So anyways, let's come up with a name for this one. I mean,
Camp Wolf Creek is pretty good. Game Slaves is also terrible, but maybe that's it.
Maybe like GameCreek, the Wolf Master or something.
GameCreek. That's actually by itself pretty good.
GameCreek is nice.
You think it's a video game camp, but it's a camp where they're going to force you to make video games.
All right. GameCreek. It's kind of like Game Freak as well.
I just realized that now hearing you say it.
It's fun.
I don't know if anybody would even remember what Game Freak is. It's also what I'm realizing.
They're the ones that make Pokemon, right? Or am I...
Oh, okay. That is... what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Game Spy. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and there's Game Shark, Game Spot, and GameStop.
Wow.
All sorts of things.
Lots of things you can add to Game, huh?
Our British listeners will know Game by itself.
And now there's Game Creek.
Adding to the pantheon. All right. That was submitted to our website at playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can email us, playwrightcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at playwrightcast. And again, anything you want to send us, we will receive. We will turn it into a video game within reasonable limits of human decency.
Yeah, in fact, Shawn Spencer, if you want to write back with the actual synopsis or something idea of your game, maybe we can pitch you a twist on the idea and help you come up with something even more different or crazier than you originally imagined. Special thank you to Protodome for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And go check out the other great shows on the Cane and Rinse podcast network, where there's quality video game discussion, I believe is the tagline of the Cane and Rinse video game podcast. And then, of course, the Sausage Factory interviews with game developers from all sorts of different video games. It's pretty great. And then, of course, Sound of Play, where you can listen to games music, left, right, up, and down.
Mostly left and right, though. We record it in stereo. Unfortunately, you have not upgraded to the 5.1 setup.
Oh my God, man. I keep pressuring you to do that. You got to get it does. I don't even hear something unless it's in that fifth channel.
It's just the back right that you can hear out of. You have a very specific hearing condition.
I've never understood why it's a decimal after 5.1. It always made me go.
That's the 0.1 is the subwoofer.
I know, but which is like there's also like 7.2. But I was always like, so you need like 7 and less than half a speaker to hear this thing?
It's 7 speakers and a subwoofer.
Yeah, and 2 subwoofers.
Let me solve the mystery here. All right. That just about wraps it up for us today. Q, why don't you give us a miniature pitch so we can close the door on this one?
Yeah, so my mini pitch this week is a game where you are tracing stars to form new types of constellations.
All right, that sounds great. And I guess we'll see you all next week.
Bye.